the way I look at a business plan is it's like a GPS for your car. Okay, so like when you're driving your car you're going to go from Tampa to
Orlando, and it's going to take you off on one of the exits, maybe 49. You're going to go up around over the overpass and then back on I-4.
Why does it do it in that one spot?
I'm like, what?
You're
what
absolutely
is this?
right. It does it in that one spot.
What am I doing here? There's nothing here.
But you're making my point.
Back on track.
The GPS reroutes you to the right place.
Yep.
When you go the wrong way, rerouting, the GPS always comes back. Think about your business plan like that. When you get derailed, that business plan is always there to get you right back on track quickly.
Yep.
So welcome to another episode of the Context to Contracts podcast. I am Brian Lovell, always here with the super amazing co-host, John Jones. So at the time that this podcast comes out, it will be past John's birthday.
Thank you, Brian.
I want to take
sing
a
to me
second
now
to say happy birthday
Thank you, bro.
Since tomorrow is what, your 60th birthday?
Thank you, Brian. No.
45th birthday?
Close. Now you're getting closer.
There we go.
Thank you.
So happy 45th
60,
birthday
man. Killing
to John
me.
Jones.
All right. Thank you.
So listen, we got a pretty cool podcast, I think, lined up for you today. We're about halfway through the year here at the end of June. And so we're at a halftime point, right? Halfway in the year. And, John, you're a huge sports fan. I'm a huge sports fan. There's a lot of halftimes in sports.
Yes, there are. Yeah.
Right?
I mean,
none in baseball.
Seventh inning stretch, maybe, between innings. But no,
you're
late. Right. You're right. Yeah. It's a little late to get it going.
Yeah, it's a little late. But we just figured we would talk a little bit.
It's crazy to think that we're halfway through the year already.
I know.
I mean, I was just over at the NBA event in Tampa and just, finally back doing live events, having the lunches and guest speakers. And, we hadn't all seen each other in, a year and a half almost for many of us. And it's just, we can't believe that we're already halfway through 2021.
I know. Well, I think part of that is by the nature of being salespeople, we tend to see time in blocks of months. 1 month, 2 months, 3. It's not in days, it's not in weeks, it's in months, right? Which I don't know whether that's good or bad, but that's how in sales
it's speeding along.
We see it. It certainly makes them speed along. And I remember when I was like 14 and I couldn't wait to get my driver's license. Like the days were really slow.
It's like Christmas time as a kid, man.
Yeah, like it took forever to get to your 16th birthday. Well, in sales, you get there in about 8 hours.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's literally how it feels. So anyways, we're talking about halftime adjustments. We just figured we would take a little bit of time today and we would talk about specifically in terms of your mortgage business, what are some halftime adjustments that, we should be looking at? And, I think it's important to note, sports does a really great job at this. Right. And I know we were joking, baseball doesn't really have a seventh inning stretch, but in, hockey, they have an intermission after every period, and basketball, football, soccer, they all take a break midway through the game to really kind of take a look at, hey, how did that game plan we went into the game with? How's that playing out? And what adjustments might we want to make if we want to continue to be successful in the game, or if we want to turn things around with an opportunity to win this game?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think, to transfer over to the mortgage side of things, I think we're going to go into a different type of defense the second half of the year here. So the first half of the year, right, it was a little bit easier still coming out of 2020 with low rate refi opportunities. So
quarter one was smoking
Quarter
hot.
one, we were off to a great, let's say, quarter one. We were way ahead.
Yes.
Right?
Way ahead.
Of probably what our business plans look like. Yep. And then quarter two, many of us still did really great coming off quarter one and applications from the end of the quarter one. But now as we're halfway through the year, we've seen the rates tick up a bit. What is that? What is the second half of the year? We're going to be faced with, if we want to stay at that offensive level, we probably need to pivot now.
Yes.
And make some changes.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I think, rates are certainly a factor. I think the other thing we're dealing with right now is the inventory issue, right? And so, I'm starting to hear, I don't know about anybody else, but I'm starting to hear from our loan officers out in the market, or even agents out in the market, who are saying that, hey, buyers are starting to take a wait and see approach. Like it's so difficult out there for buyers right now. So, what that means for you as a mortgage professional is your number of at-bats could be slowing down.
Right.
Because there's buyers that are out there, they're just not active buyers. in that market real quick. So, I think going back to the sports analogy, there are some coaches who are really great at this shift or at this pivot, making halftime adjustments. Dude, like, by the way, I would have loved to have been in the locker room when the great Tampa Bay Buccaneer Tom Brady went into halftime of that Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl.
Absolutely.
Like, I wish I could have heard what they talked about in there. Like, the greatest comeback of all time.
To not give up then, right?
Yes.
I mean, that game was done.
That game was over.
And won by Atlanta. And then he kept everybody, offense and defense, fired up and to do what they had to do to come back in that game.
Yeah, yeah. And so, there's great coaches out there who do a really great job at that halftime adjustment. So what John and I want to talk to you about today is how do you do those halftime adjustments in your own life? Now, I used life because I think it's important to remember a lot of times we think in terms of business planning that it's just business. And I think that's a mistake we make as individuals, as businesses, as leaders, because there's more to this life than just business. Right? And so, I'm going to be transparent about something
family,
real quick.
Health, and
I'm going to bring it in. We're going to talk health. So I have a bet on the books.
Stephen Katz and you do.
with an individual who I believe I wrote a check to him for $2,000 somewhere at the beginning of January that should I not hit this weight loss goal, he gets to cash. By the way, if I hit it, he, throw it up, right? I'm good. So I'm not doing so good.
Well, you can make that change right now.
I can still make that change right now, right? And so that's kind of what we're talking about. So it's not just your business, it's your health. It could be your financial health. It could be your relationships, right? Being a spouse, being, a parent. But I think, now is the time, like halfway through the year, and everything's changing too. Like when, you go back and talk about, you just were at some face-to-face stuff, like not just in our business is shifting, but the world is shifting right now too. So for a lot of people, they may not have taken like some vacation time or time with their family because, hey, where were you going to go? It wasn't like you could really do anything. Right. And now you need to take a check in on the health of all of those things too. So as John and I walk you through this segment, I think we're going to give you like 4 things that you can do right now. I want you to keep in mind, they're not always just business related, but we're going to try to throw in some things that are life related as well. So the first of the 4 things that we're going to talk about is you have to take a moment and analyze how are you doing right now, right? And so that's how are you doing against your goals? I just talked about my weight loss goal. I'm not doing good, but how are you doing against your goals with your business? I say all the time that numbers tell a story. There's a story that those numbers are telling you. So whatever your goals might be, you need to stop for a minute and really take a look at where those are at, because you might need to take some adjustments. So like some of the questions I would ask are, so let's just talk in terms of business. Hey, John, is your business up, down,
or you don't know,
or flat? Or I guess the 4th one is you don't know.
Right.
By the way, that one's more scary than up, down, or flat. That's a question that you want to ask. Another one that you might want to ask is, hey, are you cruising along? Like, are you cruising along and absolutely killing it? Like, meaning like you're killing it without effort.
Right. No intentional plan.
Yeah, no intentional plan. That's something that you want to take a look at. But one of the things I would encourage you to do is, or how about writing like a report card?
Good idea.
Right. Yep. And so if you took the things that are important to you in your life, your business, your relationships, your health, your finances, whatever, if you had to go through each of those and give yourself a report card on the first semester of...
Yeah. What does it look like?
Yeah. What does that look like? Actually take a measurement to that. And then obviously your business goals as well.
Yeah.
And then one of the things that you want to take a look at as you're going back and taking a look at your goals is, do you have a gap to make up? Okay. And so let me explain like what the gap is. So I'm going to use even round numbers. If the goal was 10, whatever it is that you're measuring, if the goal was 10 a month, that means you need to get to 120 for the year. But at the halfway point, you're at 40.
You've got a gap.
You've got a gap.
Right.
Right. And so now I need to figure out how to do 80 in 6 months instead of 120 in 12 months, which means you're going to have to crank it up a little bit,
right,
to be able to hit some of those goals. And I think this is one of those things, like when you stop where we're at right now and we take a healthy look at where we're at, this is where awareness is more important than knowledge, right? Because like to your point, you just said, do you even know?
Right.
If you don't know, you can't affect change right now.
Correct.
And even bigger, like if you don't have goals, at the end of the day, how do you know whether you're winning or losing?
Correct. I mean, I think it's important that you look like we've been doing a little teaching right now, I guess, or just a report on where does your business look like compared to last year. Month by month, breaking it down. Are you doing more or less or the same amount of pre-quals? And when you say you can't really, you might be cruising along right now, but we can clearly, if you're measuring your pre-quals or your at-bats, we can clearly see that whether you're increasing, you're doing your activities, or maybe there's something that you need to start doing to get those at-bats.
Yeah. And that, like to your point, if you're measuring some of those early indicators weekly, or
rather than closings, and
if you're other than closings, or even take it a step further, if you're measuring your activities weekly, you're going to see way ahead of time if you're going to have a challenge in your business than if you wait
correct
to measure closings.
Months,
so like
right.
One of the things I always say in that instance is, as salespeople, when do we normally measure our success? We measure it at the end of a month, right? So John, if we measure it at the end of the month, how many times a year do you take a measurement on how you're doing?
12 times.
Only 12.
Yep.
Right? But if you have a weekly goal, how many times are you taking a measure of how you're doing?
52.
52, right? And so you're seeing it happen. Like you can affect change when you're looking at it regularly versus then looking at it in that, huge pocket of time.
Correct.
And I think one of the last point I'll make on that is, it's like you've told me one of the successes you've had in weight loss recently, and
measuring myself every morning the same time.
Yep. And you've done really well, by the way.
Yeah, well, I was going to say it's starting to trend back the other way. So you gave me a little report card that I've got to measure, and I don't want it to go back in that complete direction, so I'm taking action.
But by stepping on the scale every day is when you're recognizing, hey,
if I did that once a month, trust me,
be too late.
Not going to be good. It's too late.
Too late. Yeah. All right. So the second thing we want you to take a look at is what's working and what's a complete waste of your time. Okay. And so this is where actually determining what your activities are important. So let's go back to the weight loss scenario, so to speak. What was working for you when you were having your success?
Healthy diet. For me, I was exercising, but I was focusing on eating a balanced diet.
Okay.
No keto. Which has been my go-to.
Yep.
But, healthy fruits, vegetables, trying to eat 3 to 4 times a day with protein shakes and drink lots of water, cut out all the Diet Coke, sugar, white bread, white pasta, and just trying to eat clean, which I haven't done in probably forever.
Man, that was pretty
depressing. That probably scares a guy like you that does keto. The vegetable part alone probably really gets you a little sideways. That's probably not an activity that you like.
I'm not going to like that.
No, but
here's the reality is so to this point, that has brought you success.
Yes.
So you clearly can see this brought me success. I should keep doing this.
Absolutely.
Right. Whereas I'm stepping on the scale every day and my number is kind of flat. It's not going up. It's not going down. It's kind of flat. But I probably had a donut and a couple cheeseburgers yesterday.
May have. It was National Donut Day last week.
So, you gotta take stock of what you're doing, and the things that are working for you, you need to double down on. But the things that aren't working for you, you need to take a look at eliminating from, what you're doing. And it's hard to give an example of what that is because for some people, some things work better than others. But one of the things I'll tell you I used to do when I was originating is I did a lot of business networking. So think BNI, NPI, business to business networking. Well, I always was a member of 3.
Okay.
And so on Wednesdays, I went to a lunch. On Thursdays, I went to a breakfast. And on Fridays, I went to a breakfast. And every year, I would evaluate the amount of referrals that I got from each one of those 3 networking groups. And the one that I got the least from,
that was it.
I resigned my seat and I went and found the new third.
Okay.
Right. And
like
so that's what I mean by like taking into account, like, are you spending your time doing things that aren't giving you a return on investment? And in this case for me, like they probably all 3 gave a return on investment, but I was interested in how do I get the biggest return for the least amount of time. Right. And so
Sure.
I've always been a believer of, hey, if I can invest a quarter and make $1, I want to spend my time on that activity instead of the activity that I've got to invest 50 cents to make the same dollar.
Yeah. Great point. Yep.
Right.
Yep. I mean, I think to your point, as far as the networking events or events that you do attend, if you're, at a realtor event, you've also got to step it up and know who your audience is, right? If you look at a room full of 100 realtors, what do we know? Maybe 10 to 20% are in production. Mm-hmm. There's probably 50% that are in very little production, and then somewhere in the middle, that last 20, 30% probably close in just, a small amount of business. Yeah. But knowing or having the research or the capability to know your audience, you only have enough time to go after a few people in a room.
Sure.
So if you've done your homework and you have access to data through some of the MLS reports that we have access to, yeah. You can know ahead of time, which folks you want to be trying to get in relationship with.
Yeah, yeah. And listen, one of the things I would tell you too, let's go back to talk about this is more than just business, but life. I want you to think about it in the terms of your key relationships. Do you have relationships that raise you, like they raise your lid, or do you have relationships that suck the life out of you?
Drama, yeah.
Right, bring you a lot of drama. And I think sometimes it's hard to identify, if we don't stop and really think about it.
Yeah, I mean, recently I had somebody business related that actually made a decision to, not solicit that person anymore intentionally because of that reason. The trade-off wasn't worth it.
Yeah.
It just got them too, depressed, and you've got to be with positive people.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, because all of that stuff
negativity breeds negativity.
Yeah, there you go. It's a matter. So, and the kind of last kind of point we'll make on this point, and this point we're talking about is what's working and what isn't, is that you gotta take a look at like what's getting in the way of your success. And so I remember I was coaching a loan originator a number of years ago, and they had come to me and it's like, I'm doing everything I should be doing. I'm working hard. I'm putting in full days, and I'm just not getting the return that I'm looking for. Like I'm not doing the business that I want to be doing. And I said, okay, well, let's sit down and evaluate your time for a minute. And so one of the things I'd asked them to do was, hey, I want you to like keep next to your phone just a piece of paper that's got blocks of time in like 30-minute increments. Okay. And throughout the day, I just want you to write down what you're doing, right, in that 30-minute block. Well, they didn't necessarily do a really great job at that, and it didn't, for some people, they'll do a great job at that, and it'll identify for you quickly what are you spending your time doing. But we had to go to the next level, and the next level is like, hey, let's take a look at what your actual calendar looks like. And so as we looked at it, one of the things that we uncovered was, okay, well, every morning I go to yoga at 9:00, and then in the 2 afternoons I go get my nails done, and maybe like another afternoon I have, I don't know, some other like personal type of appointment. And like until they actually looked at their schedule that way, they didn't realize that they weren't actually putting in a full day.
Right.
One, they weren't getting started until too late in the day, which by the way, like, if you're going to the gym at 9:00 and you're finishing up at 10, by the time you're done at 10, like
you're planning lunch.
Well, your phone has got to be like ridiculous with text, missed calls, the whole 9 yards. So now you spent however much time just getting caught up from that, and now you're planning lunch.
Right.
Right. So you got to look at the things that are time suckers. The third point that we want to make is that you got to be agile and willing to pivot and to adjust. Okay. And so let me give you an example of this. In our business, we had to pivot and adjust on about March 17th of 2020.
Yes, we did.
Okay.
Yep.
the world changed, but even bigger, interest rates took a massive deep dive and a huge opportunity opened up for us. Business plans as we knew it, we crumbled up, threw away. Okay. We had to pivot and adjust, and we had to do it fast. We had to be nimble if you were going to take advantage of what was going on in the market at the time. If everything around you is changing, you've got to change with it. Mm-hmm. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to look around here for a minute.
It's time to pivot again.
Yes.
I mean, it's changing.
We're at that point where it is changing rapidly.
Right.
There's a shift in the mortgage market because of the refinance opportunity slowing down. We have a difficult buyer's market right now with a huge lack of inventory.
Yep.
Right. And the world is recovering from COVID. And let's be real honest, a lot of us probably got into some not so great habits during that time period.
100%.
Right. And so, like, again, hello, knock, knock. If you're not paying attention, look around. The world is changing. And it's time to be quick and nimble. Mm-hmm. I think Vanilla Ice said that, by the way.
Quick and nimble. I like it. Ice, ice, baby. Yeah. And maybe you and I talk all the time about maybe it's time to pull out your 2020 business plan and take a look at it.
Yeah.
And maybe add back some of those activities. For example, going to the lunch at the MBA.
Yes.
Your local area, but going to networking events, trying to schedule lunch and learns, happy hours, office visits, engaging the brokers and realtors in person again, rather than via Zoom or just by the phone. I mean, it's definitely shifting, and you've got to be out in front of it because, people are getting back after it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So kind of continuing on that line and just shifting a little bit to like the personal side of that is that our business and our personal lives are not just set it and forget it. For a lot of us, I think we really wish that it was, it's like that.
Trust me, I'm getting harped on, and we've got to plan a vacation. That's all.
Yes.
That's all I've heard. I know you've got some scheduled.
Yeah.
But between us with baseball and swimming, as you know, to me that's kind of a vacation. We were just 4 days in Orlando, so I'm thinking that's kind of a vacation. Yeah. And my wife says that's not a vacation.
That doesn't count.
That's Brady playing baseball. We're just tagging along. So I've got it, hon. I'm going to get that done. I promise you.
Yeah, I'm going to hold him accountable to it.
Yes. I've got to schedule it, but at the same time, I feel like it's going to be crazy this summer everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, we've started looking at if you've gone online, I mean, what you could spend, pre-COVID, it's double and triple.
Yeah, the prices on travel are actually higher now than they were before COVID.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it's because it's a supply and demand issue.
And you talk about your financial planning and well-being.
Yes.
That's my responsibility for my family. So I'm thinking, is now the right time to be?
Yes.
But there's that trade-off if I don't do it.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think, again, you got, like, going back to, the whole point of this segment is you got to be quick and you got to shift with it. And we got to look at all of those things, like we have a tendency, like I said, to want to set it and forget it. Like, that makes me think people love to do this with drip campaigns. Oh, I'll just jam my entire database into this drip campaign.
Look at it.
And, it's always working in the background. Well, yes, it is. And drip campaigns are important. Databases are important, but they're not set it and forget it. And what I mean by that, at some point, you actually need to pick up the phone and engage with somebody in any kind of drip campaign. But our lives aren't like that either, And so, one of the things that I'm learning right now, like our kids are out of school, right? And so, needless to say, the 2020 school year was interesting to say the least. We did school a different way than we ever have.
Yeah.
It took me a while to get used to that. Then it took me a while to get used to the next semester. And now here we are again with the summer upon us, right? And so, like, the things that you're going to do with your children, the responsibilities that you have as a parent, and being able to juggle everything else in your life, we have to shift quickly to it. And I think what happens sometimes is we don't have the right triggers in place to get us going, And so, like, I'm going to share a secret with everybody. So
fire away.
In our business, we do a conference call with a group of loan originators every Monday morning at 9 a.m. The 9 a.m. is specific for a reason. We could do a meeting with that group anytime, any day, Monday through Friday. The trigger is I got to get my butt moving on Monday morning for work.
Right.
Right. That's what I mean by you got to put some triggers in place.
Nobody likes Mondays.
No, nobody likes Mondays. And that's why, like, if we didn't have to get up and get ready for that conference call or whatever it might be, we might not get moving until 11 or 12 o'clock on Monday.
Correct.
Like, I haven't fully recovered from the weekend. It wasn't long enough. I'm not ready. I don't want to do it, right? And let's be honest. In our business, we don't have traditional jobs that require us to punch a clock every, Monday through Friday, right? And so those triggers are in place just to help us pivot quickly. Mm-hmm. Go along the lines too, John, of that is like, I just made a note about diet, right? And so are there things that can derail you from success that you have to look ahead to as well? So like you just talked about, hey, I need to take a vacation with my family, right? Well, and I'm not telling you that you should diet while you're on vacation, but I'm using it as an example of, hey, if I've really got this goal, if this is really something I want to do I look ahead to what are the things that could derail me before
summertime in Florida?
Yeah. Yeah.
That can derail me. Lots of cookouts.
Yeah, a lot of cookouts, just a lot of fun.
Right. I think now that you're I know I'm vaccinated, you're vaccinated now. Mm-hmm. I have no problem with crowds.
Yeah.
Just like pre-COVID and everything. So I find like, a lot of the people that we haven't seen in a while are looking forward to socializing, neighborhood parties, graduation parties. And I was tempted at a couple of them this past weekend.
Yeah.
A lot of good food.
Yeah.
And it's been a lot easier during COVID.
Yes.
To just
stay away from that stuff,
because I wasn't, it wasn't thrown in my face, but now it's going to be a little bit, harder for me to stick to it.
Yep. So the fourth point, and we'll wrap up this one is, the fourth one, this is the 4-letter word that nobody likes. Be accountable.
Yeah, nobody likes that.
I recognize it's not really a 4-letter word. People look at that as a curse word.
Right.
Be accountable. Here's the thing. Set that appointment with your financial advisor. Right? My sister was telling me recently, she sat down and met with hers, and at the end of the conversation, she felt a whole lot better about what her retirement plan looked like than before.
100%.
Right? And it doesn't, obviously that had a great outcome for her, but what if it didn't? Right? So, the lesson there is go ahead and set that appointment with your financial advisor. Hey, the other thing is don't be afraid to look into some kind of coaching.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yep.
I think when you look at it, we've been talking a lot about sports on this podcast. Every great athlete, every great business leader, every great doctor, surgeon, they all have coaches, mentors that they go to on a regular basis. John, did you see the headline this week about Tom Brady and Clyde Christensen?
I did not.
Okay, so Tom Brady, quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Super Bowl champions, and Clyde Christensen, who is the quarterback's coach for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, the morning after the Super Bowl, Monday morning after the Super Bowl, Tom Brady FaceTimes Clyde and says, hey,
let's go over it.
I think we could be better.
I love it.
The dude just won the Super Bowl.
Right.
Right? And he's like, hey, I don't think we've peaked yet. I think we can be better. Let's talk about it.
I love
That's the greatest quarterback of all time, being accountable to something or someone.
Yep. It's never good enough.
Right? I love that.
Yeah.
Was
he drawing up the play about the toss on the boat with the trophy?
They were probably drawing that up. Yeah, that was a solid one. So don't be afraid to look into coaching. Here's the thing: people will do almost anything to stay in their comfort zone.
Correct.
Right? Think about that for a minute. We'll do almost anything to stay in our comfort zone, but it's when we get, like I said earlier, when we get comfortable being uncomfortable, typically we get to our very best. Mm-hmm. Right? And being uncomfortable. And I guess the other part of that is
reminds me of my diet. We go back to that. One of my treats is ice cream. I love ice cream, and I would make for years, no matter what diet, I'd make that little exception, like a bowl of ice cream late at night will be okay.
Yeah.
Really isn't.
I like to put saltine crackers in mine.
Really?
You've never had saltine crackers in your ice cream?
No, just straight chocolate ice cream, Brian. I'll give you my tip, a little bit of milk on top.
Wow.
That's it. No saltines.
You're getting fancy.
No saltines.
All right. So on that piece too, don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid. I'm not helping John by telling him to go put some saltine
Saltines.
crackers in his ice cream.
Or even talking about ice cream.
It's that perfect mix of salty and sweet. The other thing is, this is going to be to your
Kyle's laughing
to
at
your
that.
family. Yeah,
He's going to try it.
yeah. Dude, you should. So here's another thing: make personal commitments. Right. So we've been talking a little bit about relationships. Make that personal commitment to your family, to your children, to your spouse, or whatever. Trust me when I tell you. You tell your kids you're going to do something. You know this, John.
Yep.
They do not freaking forget it.
Do not.
Right?
Learned it this weekend.
Yeah. You tell your kids you're going to do something, they will never, ever forget it. It reminds me of, we've been making fun of myself here a little
wife's
bit.
like that too.
Of John's weight loss journey being different than mine. But back years ago, I decided I was going to do something about it. And I had gone from almost 300 pounds to 215 pounds in about 10 months. And obviously, I was pretty tight on the diet, so we know I can do it. But I had started running, and I had gotten the idea that I wanted to run a marathon because I'd had a friend do it that I was actually kind of a little jealous of, that he was able to say, hey, I've run a marathon and I can't. I told everybody who would listen that I was training for a marathon.
Smart.
So you know what happens?
You're accountable.
Everybody wants to know, how's the marathon training going?
Yep.
How are you doing? When is the marathon?
Right.
So from that point, I didn't want to tell any of the, I was hoping I was going to break a leg or something, but at that point you don't want to tell people, I just thought I wasn't going to do it.
It's just like we talk about in business planning, with what we do in life. We have some people that are afraid to put it on paper, period.
Yeah.
Because they don't want to let themselves down.
Yeah.
But you've got to hold yourself accountable. You got to look at everything in life that you're doing and be honest with yourself with the report card, the mid-semester update, and say, how am I doing in every aspect of my life? Am I a 1 right now or a 10? Mm-hmm. And then make that change.
Yeah,
So,
it's like that report card we talked about.
And if you get off track, no matter what it is, whether it's business, personal, flip the switch and go back the other way. Sometimes you have conversations with somebody and they'll say, well, I've already blown the diet. I'm like, well, if that was yesterday, back on it today, you'll be fine. Whatever it is in life you're trying to accomplish, just forget the past and get back on your plan.
Dude,
Pivot
that's
as
a
quickly
great
as you can, get back on track.
Yeah, John, that's a great point, because the way I look at a business plan is it's like a GPS for your car. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when you're driving your car you're going to go from Tampa to
Orlando, and it's going to take you off on one of the exits, maybe 49. You're going to go up around over the overpass and then back on I-4.
Why does it do it in that one spot?
I'm like, what?
You're
what
absolutely
is this?
right. It does it in that one spot.
What am I doing here? There's nothing here.
But you're making my point.
Back on track.
The GPS reroutes you to the right place.
Yep.
When you go the wrong way, rerouting, the GPS always comes back. Think about your business plan like that. When you get derailed, that business plan is always there to get you right back on track quickly.
Yep.
Right.
Great point. You should probably have that right,
Yeah, you should have it somewhere prominent.
You can see it.
Somewhere prominent where you're looking at it.
Most of us put it in a drawer and never
look at it again.
Yep.
Yeah. So good stuff. So I hope that you got some value out of John and I's conversation here real quick today about halftime adjustments. We hope that you've had a great first half of the year. Whether you have, whether you haven't, what John and I want you to know is we're all about adding as much value to people as we can. So if there's anything that we can do to help you, we want you to know that we're always here to serve. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Contacts to Contracts podcast. On behalf of John Jones, I'm Brian Lovell.
And we'll see you in 6 months to see whether that check gets torn up. And I'm John Jones.